Good morning, all of you. I welcome you all to Ansarkari. So, in this video, we are going to take up the newspaper for 5th of February 2023. So, firstly, regarding again the Adani group of companies. So, basically, in whichever countries, basically in India's neighborhood only, the Adani has several projects regarding energy generation. So, obviously, those countries they are now skeptical about the projects, and when we have a look at which all countries Adani have different projects in, so it is basically majorly we have it in Bangladesh, and we also have one of the upcoming power projects which is being implemented there. And this is going to provide electricity to Bangladesh. And apart from Bangladesh, Adani is also present in Sri Lanka, Nepal, Myanmar, and it's in talks with Indonesia as well. And this has been in like under the Neighborhood First initiative by India. So, our External Affairs Ministry said that Adani's stocks fall, it was not a foreign policy issue. So, that is the case. And apart from this, the countries in which Adani have different projects set up and they are working there, so they are maintaining an eye on the situation around this whole issue. Secondly, the insurance companies they are under scanner for rampant tax evasion. So the Central Bureau of Direct Taxes, it says that they have found out that there is rampant tax evasion and avoidance of the measures in a way to overcome the limits laid by the regulatory authority, and they are doing the investigations and to find out whether like what is the situation regarding this whole issue. Apart from that, our finance minister has to say that Adani crash, it is not going to affect the Indian economy. So it's a very big statement that the crash in stocks, and definitely it would be impacting the confidence of the investors, but she has to say that it will not affect the economy. So she was asked that regarding this ongoing Adani group issue, could this whole issue snowball into a major financial crisis in the Indian economy, and the steps, so what are the steps that government is taking on this front? So she said that it is entirely the responsibility of the regulators, which are independent of the government, and they are left to do what is appropriate. So there is RBI, there is SEBI, who are looking into this whole issue, who's analyzing the financial statements of different Adani group companies that are there. And apart from this, she says that the macroeconomic fundamentals of the Indian economy they are very strong, and the image of India it is not going to be affected because of this fall. And the FPOs they come in and they go out. So she said like recently the FPO of the Adani company it was withdrawn, and so this is the thing she is like fully confident about the performance of Indian economy. Then Justice Sanjay Kishan Khalsa, he says that IBC, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, it boosted India's ease of doing business ranking. And he says that it is a dynamic law that adapts to the realities of the Indian society. So it was implemented in 2016, and India's rank, it has gone from 142, which was in 2014, and finally our rank is at 63 in 2022. And he says that one of the major factors behind improvement in India's rank in the ease of doing business is because of the IBC code. And then he says that IBC it has shifted the balance of power from the promoters of a company. So promoters of a company, you can understand in a way that promoters are the owners of the company, and so the balance had been shifted from promoters of the company to the creditors. And the judge he referred to the changes proposed by the government in the IBC. So some changes are being proposed by the government, So one of them is that when any insolvency application will be filed against a real estate developer who is having a multiple projects, so proceedings may be initiated only against a specific project that has been defaulted, and other projects are not going to come under the scrutiny. So that is one of the proposals which is being discussed by the government regarding IBC. And the judge also highlighted the role of mediation. So mediation is one of the methods under the IBC code. And so he says that role of mediation as a confidential and voluntary process in this insolvency process is also an important part of it. Then when we talk about e-courts, so Chief Justice of India, he says that e-courts will boost the efficiency in working, and this basically the budget that was presented recently, it has provided some outlay for this initiative. So it will ensure that courts they reach each and every citizen. And we have seen that the inflow of cases to the Supreme Court, it has increased multifold since the establishment on January 28, 1950. So the Supreme Court was established in 1950, and given the backdrop that cases are increasing, so e-courts are firstly going to help increase the efficiency, reduce the cost of justice delivery, and also help in reducing the pendency of cases. And apart from that, recently the center has cleared the names that were recommended by the Supreme Court Collegium for the Supreme Court judges. So now the vacancy in the Supreme Court will only remain 2 vacancies. So the total strength would be now at 32, and the sanction strength is of 34 judges, including the Chief Justice of India. So this article is regarding the Great Indian Bustard and threat to their lives majorly because of the power lines. And there is one alternative that has been suggested in this article, so we'll be looking into that. So we see that a Supreme Court, it appointed a committee which recommended that to protect the endangered Great Indian Bustard. So the IUCN status of the Great Indian Bustard is endangered. So they've recommended that close to 800 kilometers of the proposed power lines in Thar Desert and the Kutch deserts, which are there in the state of Rajasthan and Gujarat, they should be rerouted or they should be made underground. So this is one of the recommendations by a Supreme Court appointed committee, that the power lines they should be laid underground. And when we talk about the numbers of the Great Indian Bustard left, so there are only 150 of them left, and majorly or most of them are found in Jaisalmer in Rajasthan. But we see that the power transmission companies and even the Union Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, they say that shifting all the overhead lines underground, it would be an expensive exercise and it is going to be impractical, and it would significantly increase the cost of solar power also, which is, we can say, already at an upper end in terms of its cost in India as of now. So this is what they have to say. But obviously we need to find an alternative to this situation. We cannot just sit idle and let the birds die. So we see that if the power companies they found that undergrounding the power transmission lines, it is going to be technically infeasible and going to be an expensive exercise. So the other alternative that has been suggested is installing bird diverters. So bird diverters, they are a kind of flaps which are installed in the power lines that work like reflectors. So they are going to help the birds divert, and they are visible to the flying birds from about 50 meters away. So bird diverters, they are, however, we cannot say that they are 100% successful in diverting the birds away, but still they can help and they can stopgap they can fill in the gap which exists there for the time being. And as I said, that they're not 100% successful in diverting the birds away. So right now, the installation of the bird diverters is being thought about instead of completely going ahead with undergrounding of the power transmission lines. So that is the case. And regarding the recruitment of Agniveer, so a small amendment has been made in the recruitment process. So now they'll have to give an online common entrance examination, and after that they'll have to go through physical recruitment rally, unlike in the past. And yesterday, as we saw that the news regarding the artificial tears and the different like infections and even a death being reported by United States. So in India, the CDSO, which is the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization, it has barred the Tamil Nadu-based firm from making this eye lubricant. And so here what is important is which chemical is being used in it. So it is the carboxymethyl cellulose sodium which is being used in it, and investigations they are underway as of now regarding this issue. And when we talk about the relation between India and Sri Lanka, our ties between the two countries, so majorly one of the most important factors is close civilizational ties, which is basically manifested through Buddhism. And India, it is always a dependable partner and a reliable friend of Sri Lanka. So their Minister of State of External Affairs has to say this. And the island is marking 75th year of independence. So they are celebrating their 75 years of independence. And there is an important temple, which is the Ganga Ramaya temple in Colombo, which is located there. You can find out more about this temple. And apart from that, we see that last year India has extended $3.9 billion in support to Sri Lanka to deal with the economic crisis over there. So questions are being raised even on the celebrations, the amount being spent on the celebration, given the country is suffering from economic crisis. And New Delhi, it is also like recently it gave an assurance to the IMF to restructure the country's debt to secure $3 billion of loan to the country to come out of this crisis-like situation. And India, it joins UAE and France for trilateral on a clean energy initiative and to counter the pandemic steps. So the three countries, they'll be collaborating on nuclear energy and explore opportunities in the Indian Ocean region. We'll be exploring the solar energy and climate change and biodiversity also. And also we'll be working on the concept on the area of One Health. So here you should be clear with the meaning of what do we mean by this term of One Health. So basically it is an idea where we collaboratively and collectively take into consideration the human health, animal health, and the environmental health. So that is what it stands for. Apart from that, will be like cooperating in the multilateral organizations such as World Health Organization, Gavi, which is the Vaccine Alliance. You can find out more about Gavi. And also in case of the Global Fund, the UNITAD. So all that would be encouraged, and this will be an attempt to identify the tangible cooperation on implementing the One Health approach also. And recently, Russia and Ukraine, they swapped their prisoners, around 200 of the prisoners, but still the war goes on. So the impact climate change is going to have on hydropower generation. So it is expected that because of climate change, we'll be seeing an increase in hydropower generation. This is, we can say, one of the positive steps, but it is not as rosy as it appears to be, because due to extreme rainfall, especially when the reservoirs they're already full, so it can definitely pose a risk to the human health, to the surrounding environment, and raises huge questions regarding the dam safety. And compared with the dams in South India, dams in North and Central India, they are projected to receive higher rainfall and inflow. So the management of the water reservoirs, it becomes extremely important when we already know about, when we already have estimations regarding this event. And reliable weather and inflow forecast, they are needed to maintain storage that can accommodate high inflow due to extreme rainfall. So the situation needs to be efficiently and scientifically and in a procedural manner. It needs to be managed at the ground level to prevent any kind of disaster. Then it has been found that when roadside dust was experimented and it was tested, it was found that it had magnetite in it, and which is a source of pollution. So this is regarding environmental magnetism. So it is a magnetism. It depicts the impact of the climate change, pollution, and the environmental footprints on magnetic minerals which are present in the environmental samples, such as in soil, in dust, and even in sediments. So this is one thing, and it is produced when fossil fuels they are combusted in vehicle engines. So this is what is environmental magnetism is. Talking about the importance of mangroves and the attention that they could attract in the this year's budget is like an important topic for us to discuss it. So we will be looking at all the important details regarding mangroves, where do we find in India, and what is an optimal environmental situation, and what things are needed for healthy growth of mangrove trees. So in the budget, a Mishti program was initiated, or it was announced. So Mishti stands for Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitats and Tangible Incomes. So how do mangroves they help us? So firstly, we should know that they are salt tolerant plant communities which are found in tropical and subtropical intertidal regions. So here it is important to remember that they are salt tolerant, found in tropical and subtropical regions, and they are important refuges of coastal biodiversity, and they also act as bioshields against extreme climatic events. So the very important given in the situation of climate change and frequent tropical storms, which are looming large. So planting more mangroves is a welcome development for India, which has a coastline of about 7,500 kilometers. So where do mangroves they grow in India? Where do we find them in India? So, as per the State of World Mangroves 2022 report, which is published by the Global Mangrove Alliance, you can find out more about this alliance. So, it puts that the total mangrove cover of the world is around at 1,47,000 square kilometers, and India has about approximately 5,000 square kilometers of the mangroves. And this is also as per the Indian State of the Forest Report 2021. So this the Indian State of Forest Report is published biennially, that is, it is published once in 2 years. And mangroves in India, they are distributed across 9 states and 3 union territories, with West Bengal having the highest mangrove cover of approximately 2,100 square kilometers. So we are seeing an increase in the mangrove cover from 1987 to 2021. And there's been a constant pressure due to increasing population in the coastal regions, and there is rising demand for land, timber, fodder, fuel wood, and other non-wood forest products like fisheries. So that's why the mangrove forests they are facing the pressure and they are being cleared off. So a stable and resilient mangrove ecosystem, it requires a number of species to exist side by side. So what is the ecosystem of these forests? So these are formed when there is intertidal flow and where adequate sediments they are available for the trees to set down their roots. And as per experts, they believe that aquaculture or fisheries along with the coast obstructing the tidal flow, it is one of the biggest threats to the mangrove ecosystem. So fisheries they pose a threat to the mangrove ecosystem, and land reclamation for agriculture, aquaculture, and industrial activities. They are because of all these things, we are seeing that mangroves they are being cleared off. And regarding the Mishti initiative, so who is going to implement it? So it would be implemented through convergence between the MGNREGs, the MGNREGA scheme workers, and CAMPA. CAMPA is the Compensatory Afforestation Fund Management and Planning Authority Fund. So a question in prelims has already been asked regarding CAMPA, so you can find out more about it. And why is it crucial for fighting the climate change? Why are Sundarbans so crucial for fighting the climate change? So obviously we talked about initially that they act as bioshield. They act as bioshield against the tropical cyclones. So mangroves, they are estimated to hold up to 4 times the amount of carbon as some other ecosystems. So this is the second most important thing. And Misty, it is in line with India's nationally determined contributions that were announced by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change to create an additional carbon dioxide sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2030. So India joined the Mangrove Alliance for Climate at the 27th session of the Conference of Parties in Egypt. So an extremely important article. You can find out about more about like the Campa and the also about the alliance regarding the Mangrove Alliance for Climate Change. And apart from that, when we talk about the fiscal deficit targets and how government is performing regarding fiscal consolidation, and obviously this is going to be in the context of recently the budget was announced, and apart from that, what is going to be the future? So there's one more question, that whether reducing the food, fertilizer, and petroleum subsidy is going to help in achieving a fiscal deficit target or not. And we'll be also having a look at what are the different fiscal deficit targets being set by the government. So there is a projected decline in the fiscal deficit to 5.9% of GDP in financial year 2024, compared to that of 6.4% in the current financial year. And we have a target of 4.5% by 2025-26. So these are three different figures that are provided. And when we talk about the gross market borrowings of the government, so that is estimated at around rupees 15.4 lakh crores. So whether the allocations are the allocations lower for some sectors or not, and how is it like going to help us or not in reducing the fiscal deficit? So the major allocations that have been reduced down are for the food, fertilizer, and the petroleum subsidies. So this we can name as rationalization of subsidies. So it is important because the government can move towards reaching a fiscal deficit target of 4.5% by 2025-26. And here, one more important act which was passed by the parliament becomes important. So that is the FRBM Act, the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. And you can find out about what targets were given by that act. So what needs to be done for growth? So we know that inflation hurts the poor the most, and the interest rates management by the RBI through inflation targeting, it alone cannot effectively control the inflation, because it is a demand side step that is being taken by RBI. So given we also have supply side shocks because of supply chain disruptions that we saw because of COVID-19 pandemic. So it is important that supply increases adequately so that inflation comes down. So therefore, fiscal policy measures, they become crucial to tackle the mounting inflation as well. So a proper and effective mix of fiscal policy and monetary policy is important. And the policy coordination between RBI and the North Bloc is crucial at the current time in reducing the inflation and increasing the growth rate. But as we know that right now, RBI is following a tight monetary policy, and the interest rates, they are at a higher end, so that can definitely hurt the economic growth process. So the fiscal policy needs to remain accommodative with focus on gross capital formation in the economy with enhanced capital spending. So in this budget, we saw that government majorly focused and emphasized on increasing the capital expenditure. And apart from that, obviously, capital expenditure would be increasing the investment rate, and the new tax regime would also somehow help in increasing the savings rate also. If not savings rate, then it would be increasing the aggregate demand. So that would be boosting the growth aspect. So capital spending, it is expected to rise to 3.3% of the GDP, and the interest-free loans of around rupees 1.3 lakh crores for 50 years, which is going to be provided to the states, that should help them to spend and boost the growth. So we are also focusing on the infrastructure investment. So that has a large multiplier effect on the economic growth and employment, because whenever we say that there is going to be infrastructural investment, so that is going to have repercussions for different and diverse sectors across the economy. Suppose we'll be requiring more of cement, more of steel, more of labor, and obviously it would be requiring more of transportation activities and requiring different technologies and machinery. So all of that would be helping in increasing the employment. So that is why we are saying that infrastructural investment creates large multiplier effect, and obviously it would be boosting private investment at the same time. So can the government stick to fiscal consolidation? So government, it has not deviated from its path of fiscal consolidation. So here fiscal consolidation means reducing the fiscal deficit and increasing its revenue. So basically, how can you reduce your fiscal deficit? Either you can reduce your expenditure, or you can increase your revenue or your receipts. So that is the way how fiscal consolidation can be achieved. There needs to be a proper balance between these two things. So there are like revenue uncertainties because of different challenges, which is regarding the post-pandemic times, regarding the geopolitical risks that we are facing. There's mounting inflation, there's supply chain disruptions, and energy price volatility. So given all these factors, there are revenue uncertainties, and apart from that, government has kept the fiscal policy accommodative and it has undertaken capital spending. So that is going to boost the growth, and that can also help in increasing the revenue of the government. And apart from that, the predominant mode of financing the fiscal deficit in India, it is through internal market borrowings. So when we say that our dependence upon the external sector borrowings is very less, and that's what is one of the most important factors when we say that Indian economy is resilient. So the union budget of 2023, it says that India's external debt is pegged at around rupees 22,000 crores, or the total fiscal deficit of rupees 17,86,000 crores in the 2023-24. That this is the budget estimates as of now. So the external debt is only at around 1% of the GDP, which is not a big number. So this is what keeps us away from the global volatilities and uncertainties, and does not poses like as much a bigger risk to the Indian economy. So what lies ahead? So majorly our focus is going to be on infrastructural investment that will be boosting the private investment, and as we talked about, its multiplier effect and the fiscal deficit to GDP ratio. If we see that GDP, that is the denominator, if that expands, obviously we know that it will be reducing the overall fiscal deficit to GDP ratio. So here the main focus of the government is going to be to increase our economic growth recovery so as to strengthen the GDP and reduce this ratio, and also reduce the fiscal deficit and hence meet our targets. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining in, Sarkari. I hope you have clearly understood the topics that we discussed today, which were extremely important. And apart from that, you can go ahead and find out more through Google about the topics that I told you, and you'll get the PDF link in the description box. But do not forget to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, share this video as much as possible. Thank you so much for joining us today.